Pamela with Cascade Media Group, and I want to introduce you to my very good friend and wonderful urban professional out here. She does all sorts of stuff, but I'm going to give her the microphone so that she can really talk about who she is. This is Jessica Gomes, JG, my home slice, and I'm so happy that you're here, Jessica. Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you so much for having me, Pamela. As Pamela has said, my name is Jessica Gomes. I work in the finance industry. So I am a financial strategist. I am with an agency called Pinnacle Elite, which is actually a brokerage. And our mission here is no family left behind. We believe that there is a humongous lack of financial education in the community. And so we bring our services in education and in finance to the community at no cost. And it's really our mission to just spread this knowledge as far and wide as we possibly can.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. So what got you involved with the agency you're with? Like what spoke to you that made you say like, oh yeah, this is where I gotta be?
Well, firstly, it really fell into my lap. So
Mm,
I have a background. I went to school for science. My whole life, I wanted to go into pathology. But then my senior year in college, I got pregnant with my daughter and I decided to come home to my family because it takes a village, you know? And so I really wanted my daughter to grow up in a strong environment. And so I left college and I never got to finish.
mm,
And, along my path, I entered into the corporate world and I then went into entrepreneurship.
yeah.
And the opportunity to be in finance really kind of just fell into my lap. And at the time, I had a previous business that I ended up losing during COVID. And I was just absolutely devastated. But
Yeah. What business was that? Can you tell everybody what business that?
yeah. So I started a small bakery business with a good friend of mine who we'd worked together for a while. And we started baking different treats for people with alternative diets. So it started out just as like a lactation cookie for nursing
Mm,
moms. And then
mm,
we kind of like branched out and started baking for celiac disease. We would make everything gluten free, sugar free. We did a lot of baking for diabetics, different alternative diets. Keto became very popular, dairy free.
mm.
So that kind of became our niche.
Wow. And that's beautiful. Like what inspired you to start that? Because I don't see that around a lot where you have a bakery that's dedicated for like these alternative ways of eating. Like that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So it started with just the lactation cookie. That was it. I was the first person in my family to breastfeed. And so,
Mm,
yeah, yeah, I was the first
mm,
one. I had always known I wanted to do it. And
mm.
so,
Wow.
when I decided to leave my career, I did restaurant management for a while.
Yeah.
And I had noticed in restaurant management that I was dedicating just as much time as I would have to school, but I was working for someone else in the restaurant industry. And so I really had to sit back and think about it. And I said, I could be, a doctor right now,
Yeah.
but instead I'm working in the restaurant and I still don't get to see my child. And so
Mm,
when I left that industry and entered into entrepreneurship, I just said, what skill do I have? And it was baking.
mm.
I always loved baking. And when I had my daughter and I was breastfeeding, I would make lactation cookies for myself. And
Wow.
so other moms would ask me to make them lactation cookies, and I just did it for fun. And so when I started my business, we said this is really where we should start because we need something that is going to be different, right? Everybody can make a cupcake. So what can we do that is going to really make us stand out from everyone else? And so
Right.
I decided to start with the lactation cookie. And then we just expanded from there.
Wow. And so the lactation cookie, it was something that you would give to your child? Is it something that you both have? Like, how does that?
Yeah, so the cookie is a nutrient dense cookie
Mm,
and the mother eats it. And so it's basically like taking a multivitamin
right, in a
specifically for
cookie.
breastfeeding. And so you eat the cookies and you get all of the nutrients that you need and all of the fats. So that way you can produce not only milk, but also a nutrient dense milk for the baby.
Oh my God. I feel like you should have like a patent for that. Like I've never even heard of
They're
that. Like that is
popular. They're
dope.
very
That is
popular now.
dope.
Many brands. Yeah, there are many brands. But we
Wow.
found when we
Yeah.
started with the cookie that
Yeah.
the ingredients that we would put into them, that they had health benefits for, other people,
Mm,
and they were also gluten free. And so
mm,
originally, like when we started adding different things, they
yeah.
weren't gluten free, but the lactation cookies were. So we did a lot of like tabletop events, things like that,
Wow.
farmers markets. And so
Beautiful.
people would come to our table, and the only thing that we had at the time that was gluten free were the lactation cookies. So people would just buy the lactation cookies just because they were gluten free. And so we said,
Mm,
this is something that is in demand.
yeah.
So why don't we start baking actually for people with, gluten intolerance?
Yeah. Beautiful.
Mhm.
Wow, I can understand a little bit more about how devastated you must have been to not have this business anymore because of COVID, because you
Yeah.
really put a lot of yourself and the love that you have, because this all came out of the necessity to care for your child in the
Mhm.
way that you wanted to. So that's, ooh, that is something.
Yeah.
Um, man, and you were saying, so basically COVID put a halt on things.
Yeah. So that ended up really putting a halt on things and slowing things down. And like you said, at the time, I was very devastated, but it ended up being a blessing, right?
Yeah,
I didn't understand what the blessing was at the time because obviously it didn't feel very good.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I had always known that I wanted to have a place in the community, that I always wanted to contribute to other people, and with my bakery business, I did feel like I was doing that, right? For people with
yeah,
alternative diets who couldn't normally eat sweets, I was able to give them that experience.
yeah.
But I had always known on a larger scale, I wanted to really do something positive for people. And so what I realized over time was that in order for me to really accomplish the goals that I wanted and to live the life that I genuinely believed I deserved, that
Mm,
the old life I was living had to burn to the ground
mm,
because that wasn't where
mm,
I was meant to be. And
yeah,
so I'm very grateful for all of those experiences that I had. It taught me so much that has helped
yeah.
me since then. But losing that business ended up being the best thing that happened to me career wise because
Mm,
it put me back in, I have to start over mode. And it put me back into like, creation mode because at the time I was no longer creating, I was just struggling to maintain. And
mm,
so it put me back into creator mode, and then finance, fell into my lap. And to
yeah,
answer your previous question, I knew that this was meant for me and where I was supposed to be. And I fell in love with the business when I really started to learn these financial concepts that had I known previously, I wouldn't have lost that business, right? But, everything that happens is meant to be. And so I started learning all of these things and learning how valuable it is and actually, how attainable wealth is for people and being
mm,
able to provide those services and being able to provide the education part at no cost to the community. To me, I
mm.
knew that I had found my calling.
I hear that. And man, there's a couple different questions I have, but I'm gonna start with this one. You mentioned when you were moving into an entrepreneurial route, you mentioned that you thought about what skill that you were going to bring into that route. And
Yes.
so, was there a particular skill that made you feel confident moving into the finance route, or was it just your own confidence in yourself or combination?
I think I think it was a combination of the two.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the fact that I was so confident in my own ability to be successful.
Mm,
Um, I, you know, I was able to take that risk. Some people are not able to take risks, they lack that
mm,
confidence, but I had the confidence there.
yeah.
But along with that confidence, you also have to, kind of move strategically.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have the confidence to kind of just jump into something completely brand new, like I did when I did finance, right? My confidence had grown. But at the time, back then, I
Mm,
wasn't confident to do that. So I thought about what skills I had and what kind of problems there could have been that people had that I could solve with those skills. And
Mm,
so I ended up landing on baking, because everybody is always looking for something sweet. The
mm,
whole, lactation cookie thing, people had been coming to me for them anyways. So there was already a demand. Now just imagine if I advertise it. So I
yeah,
think it was really a combination of the two.
got you. So it sounds like from then when you were starting your bakery business to now where you're at, it sounds like your confidence has grown. Would that be,
Astronomically.
yes. Can you talk about like what are the things that helped your confidence to grow? Because I know a lot of people that I've worked with, they really struggle in that area and they wouldn't be able to put like 2 feet in and bet on themselves. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So what helped you?
Yeah, it was a very long journey of just healing myself, if
Mm,
I'm honest.
mm,
I spent years just dedicated to facing, I suppose, all of the things that I had tucked away that I didn't
mm,
want to look at for so long, and
mm,
learning how to come to peace with all of those things, to genuinely really love myself for who I am, not
mm,
for who I thought I should be, but for who I actually was. And so
mm,
along that path, I have become more and more confident.
mm. Beautiful, beautiful. And I work with so many people that have such difficult times facing
Yeah, it's hard.
whatever has been so uncomfortable or painful for them.
Yeah.
So, what would you say that you did in order to face it? Like, did you write about it? Did you talk to yourself? Did you listen to music?
It's a great
How did
question.
you face it?
Um, I would have a very layered response to that because it's
Me
all trial and error.
too.
And so
Yeah, yeah.
I tried many different things, and sometimes things would work, and sometimes things wouldn't work, and sometimes I felt like I was a failure, but I never gave up. And the reason why I think the thing that really um, helped and catalyzed all of this was me being a mom,
Mm,
because my
mm,
daughter was my why. you know
mm,
and we say in finance, right, you have to identify what is your why are you doing
yeah,
this.
yeah,
And it's really relevant, I think, to most other areas of your life, because for me, I'd struggled with depression, I'd struggled with anxiety my
yeah.
whole life. I didn't realize it until I
Mm,
actually started seeking help, that this was an issue I had my whole life. I honestly just
mm,
thought that this was the way that things were. i didn't
mm,
i didn't
mm.
even know that there was anything wrong.
Right.
But I did seek help in my early 20s. When I was pregnant was the first time that I actually sought help, and started
Mm,
talking about it. And I ended up going on medication. I had gone to therapy. I ended up on medication for my depression.
mm,
And when I left my corporate job at the restaurant, I lost my health care. And
right.
so I had to stop taking my medications cold turkey.
Mm,
And yeah, it was rough. It was very, very
yeah.
difficult. But I looked at my daughter, and I said, my daughter deserves better than this version of me.
Mm,
And I don't have access to medication. So I have to figure this out,
yeah.
because she's small. And if she grew up seeing me function the way that I functioned, then she's going to grow up and function that way. And I didn't want her to be put in that situation.
Goodness. That took such courage and being so self-aware. I think that's really something that, there aren't many people that I've encountered that are as self-aware as you are. It's
Thank
such a
you.
testament. It's such a testament to the everything that you've already shared here. Like as far as really just paying attention to yourself and knowing yourself and facing those things
Yeah.
that are so difficult. Like that is astounding, really.
Thank you. It was
Yeah.
definitely a long, rough journey, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of minutia in there of all, the different trials and the different errors. But really, what got me through all of it was just always having my why, just always looking at my daughter and just using her and the love that I had for her as strength.
That's real. Is that a part of your why for why you're in finance?
Yes, absolutely. Hmm.
So what do you feel like, trying to think of how I want to say this question, but what do you feel like she's learning from you when she,
Oh
like, what
God.
do you feel like she's learning?
I think the strongest lesson that I've taught my daughter is how to think empirically and make good decisions.
Mm. So that's
Um,
like higher level critical thinking, judgments, like,
yes.
nice.
I feel like as a parent, this has always been my goal. There's going to come a time where I'm not going to be with my daughter anymore when she's making these decisions. And so I can tell her what it is that I think she should do. And I
Mm.
could tell her what decisions I would make. But when she's not with me anymore, there's not going to be anyone to do that for her. She's going to have to make those decisions by herself. And so, from everything that I've been through, I've always communicated very well with my daughter. I've always talked things out with her for her level of understanding. I've always been truthful with my daughter about what's going on again for her level of understanding.
Yeah.
And I've always taught her the thought process of how I came to those decisions. And, and my daughter in her life, whenever she has anything going on and we talk about it, we talk about all of the different possibilities of the decisions that you can make because I am going to have to let her go one day. And I want to be confident in knowing that she knows how to make good decisions. I can't make decisions for her, but I can feel
Mm.
comfortable knowing that I can trust in the decisions that she will make for herself. And
Mm.
I think that that is probably the best lesson that I've taught her. Not only that, though, confidence, because a part of being able to make good decisions is not caring what anybody else thinks about the decisions that you make.
Yeah.
And so, I've always instilled confidence in my daughter in doing what feels correct to you, even if someone else, even mommy, thinks that that is not what you're supposed to do. If something is true to you and you think about it and you
Mm.
want to take a chance there, then you be confident and you take a chance.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's really, really not just giving a fish, but really teaching how to
Yeah.
fish. Like, totally,
Yes.
totally get that. What do you feel like you learned about yourself in this journey as it continues?
So one of the biggest realizations that I had about myself
Yeah.
along my journey was really just, how do I say it? My intentions have always been good and my intentions have always been pure. I've always been someone who's wanted to contribute to other people for the better.
Mm.
But early on in my journey,
Yeah.
I would look at things very much so from the perspective of ego and of how does this make me feel and of how do I feel that this makes me look. And so,
Mm.
although my intentions oftentimes in my mind were positive,
Yeah.
I really had a negative effect on a lot of people in my life because of my personality. And
Mm.
so I would, you know, victimize myself, I suppose, if things didn't go the way that I wanted them to. In my mind, I would think that that person did something negative to me.
Mm.
But in reality, I was holding unrealistic expectations of the people around me. They just
Mm.
weren't responding the way that I wanted them to, right? And
Mm.
so along my journey, I've had to learn to take accountability for the faults that I've had in, a lot of the situations that I've had with other people because at the time I felt like I was a victim and like they were affecting me negatively. And I
Mm.
didn't realize until I had progressed along my journey that, I was also affecting those people negatively as well. I didn't see
Mm.
it at the time when I was looking at it from the perspective of ego. And so it was a very humbling experience for me along my journey to really experience that even when you have good intentions, that doesn't mean that, other people are going to receive the intentions the way that you want them to.
Yeah.
And that you really have to open up your mind and view things from different perspectives because you could be having a negative effect on someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, I guess that's why, people say the road to hell is paved with good intention
Yeah,
because it's about the impact that was made
yeah,
on the person. So I
yeah.
completely understand that.
Yeah, and I've definitely had along my journey, I've definitely negative impacted a lot of people that I really cared for. And
Mm,
I had to take accountability for that along my journey and
yeah,
make peace not only with those
yeah,
people, but also with myself.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you've done so much work and growth like within yourself and the journey of course continues. I'm
Yeah,
interested because a lot of this journey obviously like it has to do with yourself and it's a very individual journey.
yes.
However, are there people that you were inspired by when you were growing?
Inspired by, no, I can't say that there's anyone that I was necessarily inspired by.
Got it.
Um, but there were definitely lots of people, many people that I learned very valuable lessons from.
Oh, say more
But
about that, please.
yeah, every person that's come into my life, I have learned something from. And so along my journey, like, like I've spoken about, of kind of just like looking back on things and like reanalyzing things from different perspectives. When
Mm,
I started along my healing journey, I'll say, and I had to revisit all of the things that happened in my life that either traumatized me or had a negative effect on me or impacted my personality in some way. I had to look at all of those events and say, what did I learn here?
mm, mm,
Right? Because it's very easy when something happens to you that is negative, that makes you feel a low vibrating emotion. It's very easy to
mm.
focus on just the negative.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's a negative and there's a positive to everything because duality exists, right? And so it's a painful process to look back on something painful and
Hmm.
say, what good came of this? That's hard.
Yes, yes,
But once you're able to do that and find the lesson there,
yeah.
then you can really grow, into being a more humble, more positive, more loving person. And that was really what my journey was. So every single person that had encountered my life, I learned something from them. Even if all I learned was that I didn't want to be like them.
Yo, that's a lesson too. That's a
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah. Even if all I learned was, this is how not to be. I learned something very important from every person in my life, but I did not idolize anyone.
Gotcha. Beautiful, beautiful. I completely understand that. I know. So you talked about different people, you learning something from everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
so were there any particular lessons in your childhood that stayed with you from any particular person, if any?
What do you mean?
So
In
like,
what way?
um, so like maybe you could have had an experience in childhood and maybe you remembered something about that experience or with that interaction with that person that you kept as you move forward in your journey. I don't know if that's
Positive or
something.
negative?
That's up to you. That could be
Okay.
either. Lessons come from both stuff.
Okay. So I guess I would say the thing that really stuck to me the most
Yeah.
was the way that I treated my sibling when we were younger, my little
Mm,
sister. That's
mm,
been something that was very difficult for me to forgive myself
mm,
from over the years
mm,
because my sister was not treated well when we were young.
mm,
And it was never intentional.
mm.
No one ever intended to treat my sister badly.
Yeah.
But now with advances in, science and, people just understanding things more, my sister is a miracle. She was born
Mm,
like 3 months early. My sister should not be
wow.
here.
Wow.
And because, she was born so early, there were like some, I don't want to say that there were developmental issues, but she had like ADHD. Like ADHD is what she was diagnosed with, like when she was a kid. And no one understood what that was.
Yeah,
Like now, people really understand, and there are different methods to live with ADHD now that didn't exist back then.
yeah.
And so my sister was really, pushed aside, and she didn't get the care that a child with ADHD would get now.
Mm,
And so at the time, it was just like, oh, like my little sister is just so irritating. I don't want to be around her. You know what I mean? And
mhm,
as kids, like we
mhm.
wouldn't really play
Yeah.
with her. It was very difficult. We didn't understand that that was wrong, and we
Mhm.
didn't understand that there was something more going on with her that really just the entire family didn't understand.
Yeah.
And so as I've gotten older, that's one of the relationships that has taught me that I really had a very negative impact on some people. And that was never my intention. It was never my intention to do that. But now, even now in our adult lives, my sister and I have a much better relationship than we did when we were younger, but it's definitely been
Yeah.
a journey. We've had to work on it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel an obligation to her,
Mm,
to support her along her journey in any way
mm,
that I can, because I have to take accountability for the fact that I contributed to her trauma, whether it
mm,
was intentional or not. And so I owe that to her.
mm.
And, it's just really been eye opening and very humbling and humiliating, if I'm honest,
Yeah.
looking at the way that I treated my sister when we were young,
Mm,
because there was information that I just didn't have access to and that I didn't understand. And to see the impact that it's had on her and to know that I played a part in that is truly heartbreaking.
I hear that. Do you feel like you've gotten to the place to be able to forgive yourself of
I
what
have.
you didn't know? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I have forgiven myself for everything, that that I've ever experienced in my life. But you don't just forgive yourself and then walk away.
No, of
I've
course.
I've forgiven myself and taken accountability. And
Yeah.
so, I am a soldier for my sister, regardless of whether or not she recognizes it. Because again, I played a role in her trauma, and so therefore I'm obligated to help her to get through it.
Oh, I hear that. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I love the way that you mentioned, like, okay, well, just because you forgive, you don't forget about it. Like truly like forgiveness, you never really forget. And you do
Yeah.
something with that. You know what I mean? So I'm so glad that you were in the
Yeah.
place to be able to forgive and move forward with the accountability. Because
Hmm.
people struggle there.
Yeah.
People really struggle.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so I know that we're getting ready to come to a close, but I want to ask you this question. Like, let's say that this were it won't be, but let's say it's the last interview that you were going to do anywhere with anyone,
Uh-huh.
which isn't going to happen, right?
Uh-huh.
But if it was, what is it that you would want the world to know about
I don't know that there's anything necessarily that I could say I would want the world to know about me, because in the grand scheme of things, I am so insignificant compared to everything that is going on right now that matters.
you?
And
Mm,
so, what I would want the world to know about themselves is that, everyone is on a journey and everyone is on a different journey. And we're at a time right now where you really, really have to love yourself unconditionally.
for
You
real.
cannot change anyone around you, even if you feel you know better, and you might. If you want to create change, then you have to change yourself. And if you
Mm,
want to change yourself, then you have to be yourself. So I want everyone to know that you should trust yourself. And if you feel like you're crazy, you're not crazy. Continue to listen to that voice inside, because it's you and you know what's best for you. And continue to be you, and you will change and contribute to everything else that's going on.
absolutely. Oh my goodness, absolutely. And I'm so glad like, because of the way you're saying it and the conviction what you're saying it with, I can tell that it's something that you've said to yourself over and over, and I can tell it's a part of your own journey. Like, you, these people, these aren't just words. Like, this is coming from someone who is living it, and that's why I respect you so much. And
And I
I am
respect
so
you.
grateful that you're in my life, and I love you. And
Yes.
we're gonna talk more often, even on this
Yes,
platform. Just say.
definitely. Definitely. And I love you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yes, of course. And there will be more opportunities. And thank you everyone for watching. And I hope that you all learned something from this. I hope that you all could recognize that we all have struggles. We all have things that we can go through. But as Jessica has already mentioned, trust the voice within yourself. And I am Pamela with Cascade Media Group, and we're off.
Program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.